The air was filled with tension, the kind you can almost feel pressing against your chest. On March 19, 1982, the rock world lost one of its brightest young stars, Randy Rhoads. Known as the electrifying guitarist behind Ozzy Osbourne's solo career, Rhoads was just 25 years old when his life was cut short in a shocking and tragic accident. His last minutes were nothing short of terrifying, and they still haunt fans to this day. That morning, the band had stopped in Leesburg, Florida, while traveling between shows. At the time, the group was in the middle of a grueling tour, but spirits were mixed. Randy, unlike many in the rock scene, was known for his discipline. He didn't abuse drugs or alcohol heavily and was more passionate about music and teaching guitar. Yet fate had something cruel waiting. A small plane sat idle at the airfield near the tour bus. The band's tour bus driver, Andrew Aycock, had aviation experience and decided to take a few people for joy rides. What could possibly go wrong? Unfortunately, everything. Aycock took the plane up with keyboardist Don Irie watching from the ground. Rhoads, hesitant at first, eventually boarded one of the flights, joined by hairdresser Rachel Youngblood. The flight began as playful, but Aycock made a reckless decision. He tried to buzz the tour bus, where Ozzy and others were sleeping inside. Each pass became more daring. The plane swooped down terrifyingly low, clipping closer and closer. Then, on a final attempt, disaster struck. The wing of the small Beechcraft Bonanza clipped the bus, tearing it apart. The plane spiraled violently out of control, crashing into a nearby garage and bursting into flames. All three on board, Randy Rhoads, Rachel Youngblood, and Aycock, were killed instantly. Don Irie, who witnessed it all from the ground, later described it as one of the most horrifying moments of his life. Can you imagine the silence that followed after the roar of that crash? It was the kind of silence that leaves you cold, realizing that a life filled with so much promise had just vanished in an instant. Randy's death wasn't just a personal loss for his family and friends, but it sent shockwaves through the music world. He had redefined guitar playing with his classical influences, fusing technical brilliance with raw emotion. Even Ozzy himself, devastated and broken, admitted he never truly recovered from losing his friend and bandmate. The terrifying last minutes of Randy Rhoads remind us of how fragile life can be. One moment he was laughing, playing, living, and the next he was gone. His story is not just about tragedy, but about a blazing talent that continues to inspire guitarists decades later. His notes still echo, even if his hands are no longer here to play them. Randy's life ended too soon, but his music ensures that he'll never be forgotten. It's heartbreaking to think about what more he could have created, but perhaps that's why his legend endures. His flame burned bright, even if it was brief. The morning of March 19, 1982, began like any other for a band on the road. The group had pulled into Leesburg, Florida, exhausted from tour life. Ozzy Osbourne, drained from weeks of shows and personal struggles, had fallen asleep on the band's tour bus. The sun rose quietly over the airfield nearby, but within just a few hours, tragedy would strike in a way so sudden and violent that it left the rock world in shock. Randy Rhoads, Ozzy's young guitarist, was the jewel of the band. At just 25 years old, he had already carved his name into history. His playing combined fiery heavy metal riffs with the precision of classical music, a style that was completely his own. Fans adored him, musicians respected him, and Ozzy often admitted that Randy was the backbone of his solo success. But behind all of that brilliance was someone still so young, with dreams far bigger than fame. Randy had often spoken about leaving the rock lifestyle one day to study classical guitar at UCLA. He didn't want to be a rock star forever. He wanted to be a true musician. But on that fateful morning, his life was placed in the hands of someone reckless. Andrew Aycock, the band's tour bus driver, also held a pilot license. Spotting a small Beechcraft Bonanza parked nearby, he couldn't resist temptation. Without official permission, he convinced the group to let him take the plane up for a quick ride. Some band members declined, uneasy about his idea, but curiosity and a sense of adventure pulled others in. The first flight seemed harmless enough. with Don Airey, the band's keyboardist, watching nervously from the ground. The plane circled above, dipping slightly, but returning without incident. Then came the second flight. This time, Aycock wanted to have a little fun. He took the plane dangerously low, skimming close to the tour bus, where Ozzy and others were sleeping inside. The sound was deafening, the danger obvious. Still, Aycock pushed further. When it came time for the third flight, Randy Rhoads reluctantly agreed to board, joined by Rachel Youngblood, the band's seamstress and hairstylist. Don Airey recalled seeing Randy smiling nervously as he climbed inside. None of them could have known it would be the last time they would see him alive. Once in the air, Aycock's reckless stunt became deadly. He dove toward the bus again and again, each pass lower than the last. Why did Randy, such a cautious man, even get on that plane? Some say he hoped to calm Aycock down. Others believe he was simply trying to enjoy a quick thrill. But what is certain is that Randy wasn't comfortable. Witnesses reported he looked tense, gripping his seatbelt as the plane dipped. On the final pass, disaster struck. The wing of the plane clipped the top of the bus, tearing it apart. The Beechcraft spiraled violently out of control, slamming into a nearby garage and bursting into flames. All three on board, Randy Rhoads, Rachel Youngblood, and Aycock, were killed instantly. Don Airey, who witnessed it all from the ground, later described it as one of the most horrifying moments of his life. Ozzy Osbourne stumbled out of the bus, screaming in shock, his voice cracking with disbelief. Sharon Osbourne, who was also there, described the moment as pure chaos. 1 second laughter filled the morning air, and the next the world went silent, replaced by smoke and the smell of burning fuel. And here's a question worth asking. Why did Randy have to go so soon, at the very height of his brilliance? The answer, tragically, is recklessness. Randy wasn't a man known for wild behavior. He wasn't drunk, he wasn't chasing danger. He was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, a victim of another person's poor judgment. The aftermath was devastating. Ozzy, who had leaned so heavily on Randy, both musically and personally, fell into despair. In interviews years later, he admitted he never truly recovered from losing his friend and bandmate. "I lost my best friend," Ozzy said. "He was more than a guitar player. He was family." The band, stunned and grieving, struggled to continue. Fans across the world mourned, many unable to believe that such a young, vibrant life could end in an instant. Randy's death became one of rock's most infamous tragedies, but his influence only grew stronger. His playing on albums like Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman redefined the guitar for an entire generation. Songs like Crazy Train still echo with his signature energy, while his solos remain studied by guitarists decades later. Even though he left this world at 25, his impact was so profound that he is often mentioned alongside legends who had decades-long careers. When you listen to his recordings today, you can almost feel the contrast between his youthful energy and his mature musical soul. It's heartbreaking to think of what more he might have created, but perhaps that's why his legend endures. His flame burned bright, even if it was brief. The terrifying last minutes of Randy Rhoads remind us that life is unpredictable and fragile. He wasn't supposed to die that day. He wasn't supposed to board that plane. But fate, in its cruel way, had other plans. And yet even in his absence, Randy's light shines. His final moments were filled with fear, but his life was filled with brilliance, passion, and love for music. That is the part of his story worth remembering most. Randy Rhoads may be gone, but his music, his influence, and his spirit remain immortal. His story will always carry sorrow, but also inspiration, a reminder to chase excellence, to live fully, and to never take a single day for granted.